Tokyo, 2017. Neon lights glittered over the city like 1,000 secrets, hiding behind the glow of every smartphone screen. No one knew that behind those screens a predator was waiting. Quiet, polite, invisible. His name was Takahiro Shiraishi, a man who promised help to those who wanted to die, only to lead them to something far darker. This was not just murder. This was manipulation in its purest, coldest form. A horror born from loneliness and trust. The story began online, where people shared their pain in whispers. I can't go on. I want to die. Does anyone understand? In the noise of millions, he found them. He didn't offer comfort. He offered company, a chilling promise. I'll die with you. But none of them knew only one of them would die. The rest would vanish, one by one, into a small apartment in Zama. This is the story of Japan's most chilling serial killer of the modern era. A man who turned social media into a hunting ground. A story that will remind you how silence, isolation, and technology can birth monsters among us. Stay till the end, because this isn't just about death. It's about what happens when humanity forgets how to listen. Takahiro Shiraishi looked like anyone else. Neat, calm, almost forgettable. He lived in a quiet suburb of Kanagawa, working as a recruiter in an escort agency. To neighbors, he was polite and soft-spoken, never the type to raise suspicion. But inside, his mind was a labyrinth of darkness. He watched people closely, studied their loneliness, and learned one terrifying truth. Desperate souls are the easiest to lure. His routine was ordinary, yet behind closed doors, he lived in chaos. Unpaid bills, lost ambitions, a hollow existence. But that emptiness soon turned into something sinister. He began spending hours on Twitter, reading messages from people who wanted to end their lives. And then something changed. He didn't pity them. He saw opportunity. Using fake names, he created accounts like Hanging Pro and Suicide Helper. His messages sounded kind, understanding. He promised to die with them, to make their end peaceful. But his plan was never to die. It was to kill. One cold October evening, a young woman from Tokyo sent a tweet that changed her fate forever. She wrote, "I want to die, but I don't want to die alone." Within minutes, a reply appeared. "I'll be with you. Let's die together." It was Shiraishi. She agreed to meet him, believing she had found someone who understood her pain. She didn't know that behind the calm words was a man preparing to make her his first victim. When she entered his apartment, she noticed how ordinary it looked. Small, quiet, with curtains drawn. But once the door shut, the air changed. There was no empathy, no comfort, only a chilling silence. Within hours, she was gone, and Shiraishi had crossed the line between fantasy and blood. That night, he cleaned the apartment, stored her remains in cold containers, and went back online as if nothing had happened. The next day, he sent another message to another victim. His hunt had begun. Over the next 3 months, 9 people vanished, 8 women and 1 man. Each one contacted him online, seeking an escape from loneliness. Some were teenagers, others in their 20s. They met him believing he would share their final moments, but Shiraishi only wanted to take control, to play God with life and death. His method was precise. He would meet them at train stations, lead them to his apartment, and once inside, end their lives quickly and quietly. The sound of the city outside masked everything. He dismembered the bodies, storing remains in boxes, sprinkling cat litter to hide the smell. To his neighbors, the only odd thing was the faint scent drifting through the walls, a smell that some thought came from spoiled food. Inside that tiny apartment, surrounded by horror, Shiraishi lived calmly. He watched TV, ate noodles, scrolled his phone, while the remains of 9 human beings lay hidden around him. It was as if empathy had been erased from his soul. Families began to panic. One by one, young girls stopped replying to messages, stopped answering calls. Posters filled train stations. News channels buzzed with missing person alerts. Parents cried on national television, begging their children to come home. But the police had little to go on. No clues, no suspects. Just the same pattern. Every victim had been talking to someone on Twitter before disappearing. A breakthrough came when a brother of one victim hacked into his sister's Twitter account. He found messages from an unknown man offering to help her die peacefully. The username matched one of Shiraishi's fake profiles. Acting quickly, the brother traced her final location to Zama City and gave the lead to the police. Detectives followed that digital trail until they reached an apartment with sealed windows and a smell they would never forget. On October 30th, 2017, police entered apartment 205 in Zama. What they saw would haunt Japan forever. Inside were 9 severed heads, flesh stored in coolers, blood-stained tools scattered across the room. The air was thick with rot, and sitting calmly in the middle of it all was Takahiro Shiraishi, smiling faintly as if nothing was wrong. When asked what he had done, he simply said, "I killed them. I didn't think it was a crime if they wanted to die." His words chilled every officer in the room. There was no emotion, no fear, no remorse, just calm acceptance, as though he was describing a routine. The apartment was sealed and forensic teams worked for weeks to collect evidence. The media called it the House of Horror. Japan, a nation known for safety and silence, was forced to confront one of its darkest truths. During interrogation, Shiraishi spoke openly. He explained every murder, how he met each victim, what he said to them, and how he convinced them to trust him. He admitted he felt nothing while killing them. No pleasure, no anger. Just emptiness. They wanted to die, he said. So I made it easy. His emotionless tone shocked the nation. Psychologists called him a sociopath, a man without empathy or guilt. But others saw something even more disturbing, a reflection of how deeply disconnected the modern world had become. People were dying not because of him alone, but because no one else had heard their cries for help. Every word of his confession became headlines. Japan was silent, horrified, and broken. In 2020, his trial began. Families of victims filled the courtroom, their eyes fixed on the man who had destroyed their lives. Shiraishi sat motionless, emotionless, staring at the floor. His lawyer argued that the victims had consented to die, but the court saw through that lie. The judge declared that no one can consent to being murdered, and that Shiraishi's calm cruelty was proof of pure evil. When the sentence was read, death by hanging, the room filled with tears and silence. Some families sobbed with relief, others simply stared. Justice had been served, but closure remained unreachable. The 9 souls were gone, and nothing could bring them back. Outside the courtroom, the world watched, realizing that in an age of digital connection, we were more disconnected than ever before. For years, Takahiro Shiraishi sat on death row in Tokyo Detention Center, alone, silent, and still showing no regret. Guards said he was polite, calm, and often smiled faintly when spoken to. He wrote letters to his family, but never once mentioned his victims. His only concern was the food, the time, and the walls that surrounded him. Outside, families continued to grieve. Every year, they gathered to remember the 9 who never came home. Candles were lit, prayers whispered. The pain had not faded. It had simply learned to live in silence. The world forgot him slowly, but Japan never did. And then one morning in 2025, the silence broke. The Justice Ministry announced, "The death sentence of Takahiro Shiraishi has been carried out." The execution made headlines across the world. Some called it justice, others called it too merciful. But deep down, everyone felt the same haunting emptiness. His death didn't erase his crimes. It only marked the end of a nightmare. In Zama, apartment 205 was demolished, leaving only a bare concrete space where once 9 lives were lost. Locals avoided the area. Those who passed by said the air still felt heavy, like sorrow lingering in the wind. The case sparked massive change. Japan strengthened its online safety laws, and people began talking about depression and suicide openly. The 9 victims were no longer just numbers. They became symbols of awareness and empathy. The world of social media still glows every night. Millions typing, scrolling, searching for someone to listen. But behind every profile, a reminder remains. Trust carefully because darkness can wear a smile. The story of Takahiro Shiraishi is not just about murder. It's a warning, a whisper that says, loneliness can kill if no one listens. Today, 9 souls rest in silence, but their story speaks loudly, urging us to care, to check on the quiet ones, to reach out before it's too late. Evil doesn't begin with blood. It begins when we stop noticing pain. If this story shook you, don't just move on. Remember why it exists. These weren't just victims. They were people who wanted to be heard. You might not save the world, but you can save someone with a single message, a single moment of care. So, before you scroll past someone's cry for help, pause and listen. That one moment of kindness might be the light that pulls them back from the edge. Subscribe to this channel to keep uncovering the world's deepest, darkest truths, and to remind yourself why empathy still matters. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, and never forget the 9 voices that still echo in silence.